We are happy to present our hot topic, Experiencing Homelessness as a Student, presented by Lorraine Gallagher and Lucia Baumann. Let's begin with a quote by Nelson Mandela. Overcoming poverty is not a task of charity, it is an act of justice. This quote reminds us that as teachers, we can be non-judgmental, treating our students experiencing homelessness with respect, kindness, and compassion. Who is experiencing homelessness? Children and youth experiencing homelessness are those who do not have access to a permanent and satisfactory dwelling to return home to at night. This includes those who are sharing housing with other people due to their loss of housing or economic hardship, sharing transitory housing like a motel, motorhome, trailer, or homeless shelter, living in any type of vehicle, living in a public structure such as bus or train stations, and the children of migrants. How can we identify students who are facing homelessness? When you are trying to identify a student experiencing homelessness, you can look for the following behaviors. The student might have attendance issues that may come from transportation challenges. The student may come to school unprepared and unable to turn work in. Many older students are balancing school and work to pay for living expenses for themselves and their families. Or the student may be struggling with being focused in class and they are unable to complete assignments. You can look for a child that exhibits poor and unreliable nutrition because they do not have a healthy immune system or access to health care. The student might have poor hygiene and wardrobe issues because they cannot wash their clothes regularly. The student may avoid discussing personal details because they feel ashamed for being homeless and they will choose to not share their living status. Other behaviors you may notice might be that the student has difficulties staying awake because they experience tiredness from sleeping wherever they can, which might be a car, a shelter. The student seems disconnected from learning because of the high stress that comes with not knowing where their next meal will come from or if they will be taken away from their parents. And the student may show signs of trauma or anxiety, such as crying and having meltdowns for younger children and agitation and restlessness for older children. The impact of trauma on the brain will be discussed in a later slide. What are some basic facts about students experiencing homelessness in California? In the 2016-2017 school year, 246,296 public school students experienced homelessness. Of these students, 7,533 were unsheltered, 17,061 were in shelters, 10,095 were in hotels or motels, 211,607 were doubled up with one or more families living in the same small space. California has the largest population of students experiencing homelessness in the country and twice the rate of the national average. In the 2012-2013 school year, 52% of all public school children who were experiencing homelessness were enrolled in pre-K through 5th grade, 21% were in grades 6th through 8th, and 27% were in grades 9th through 12th. Of those students experiencing homelessness, 16% were ELLs. In Los Angeles Unified School District, 14,323 students experienced homelessness. And in rural Trinity County in the northwestern part of California, had the highest percentage of students in homeless situations with 13.3% of its entire student population experiencing homelessness. On any given night in 2018, 159,911 youth younger than the 25 years of age were experiencing homelessness across the country. 36,361 of them were on their own. 1/3 of these were in California, who can boast for having the highest number of unaccompanied homeless youth. Let's take a few minutes to look at facts. On the top link, you can go find the homelessness rate at your school site. Pause the video and check and see the facts at your school site. And please jot down the number of students at your school who are homeless and what percentage of your school population they are. Then go to the second link and input your data in a Google form to share with the rest of us. What does the law say that schools must do? In 2001, the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Assistance Improvements Act was passed by Congress. It is a United States federal law that provides federal money for homeless shelter programs, and it was the first significant federal legislative response to homelessness. It was signed into law by President Ronald Reagan, and it has been authorized several times over the years. It states that students in homeless situations must have access to education and other services, and that the students must be given an opportunity to meet the same challenging state student academic achievement standards as their classmates. Schools must keep students in homeless situations in their school of origin unless it is against the parent or guardian's wishes. They must also enroll students in homeless situations immediately, even if they do not have their previous school records, immunization records, proof of residency, birth certificate, or proof of guardianship. The school must also provide transportation to and from the school of origin. School districts have had great incentive to count the number of students experiencing homelessness because they receive extra funds for high-need students under the LCFF. However, their counts are not always accurate because families do not always feel comfortable sharing private information about their living situation. Here is a graph that shows how the population of students experiencing homelessness in the state of Washington has grown by 30%, and how the McKinney-Vento funds have just slightly increased by 8%. Many feel that because so many students in homeless situations have not been accurately identified, the amount of funding for them needs to be increased to meet their needs. What is the impact of homelessness on students? Let's begin with the social-emotional impact. Homeless children experience a loss of community, routines, possessions, privacy, and security. Homelessness also makes families more vulnerable to other forms of trauma, which include physical and sexual assault, witnessing violence, or abrupt separation. Children bear the brunt of homelessness. Children experiencing homelessness go hungry twice as often as non-homeless children. More than 1/5 of preschoolers in homeless situations have emotional problems that are serious enough to require professional care, but less than 1/3 of these preschoolers receive any kind of treatment. Half of school-age children experiencing homelessness deal with anxiety, depression, or withdrawal, compared to 18% of non-homeless children. And by the time children in homeless situations are 8 years old, 1 in 3 has a major mental disorder. What is the impact on the student's education? Children experiencing homelessness are twice as likely to repeat a grade as compared to non-homeless children. They have twice the rate of learning disabilities, and they have 3 times the rate of emotional and behavioral problems of non-homeless children. We know that trauma and anxiety can impact the brain. Children who have grown up surrounded by traumatic experiences have their fight or flight response activated over and over again, and it takes a serious toll on their brain. The frequent need for the release of adrenaline and cortisol leads to the body having trouble regulating the process in a healthy manner. This constant stress on a developing brain has major consequences. A damaged amygdala leads to increased anxiety and fearfulness in a traumatized child. A damaged prefrontal cortex can result in difficulty focusing, poor memory, and difficulty with critical thinking. A damaged hippocampus can mean impaired memory and mood control, which results in long-term consequences on brain development and seriously impacts a child's life. These constant stresses on a child and the damage done to the brain development have a major influence on their behavior and how they approach the world. What can be done to help students who are homeless? Once you have confirmed that the child is homeless, you can do the following things. Start by ensuring that the basic needs of the student are being met. This includes having personal items, clothing, and transportation. You can create a buddy system and match the homeless child up with a classmate that might help them settle into school. You can make time for the child to complete assignments, homework, and projects at school because they may not have the space or materials to complete their work once they leave campus. You can also complete an educational assessment because the child may be behind in academics due to their attendance or moving from school to school. Other ways to help include maintaining structure and creating routines with clear rules and expectations. And if the child is showing social-emotional needs, be proactive to ensure that the child has access to counseling services. Encourage the child to participate in after-school programs that provide opportunities for tutoring and building strong, positive mentoring relationships. What resources are available for students and families experiencing homelessness? There are many organizations and nonprofits that provide resources for students and families experiencing homelessness. The resources we are providing here are national, but of course there are many community resources as well. Feeding America is a network of more than 200 food banks that feed more than 46 million people. Mercy Housing is a national organization that helps find affordable housing, supports services for low-income families and seniors and people with special needs, and also assists with health and wellness support, children's educational needs, and job readiness and financial literacy. Cedars Kids is a national organization that helps families find services for childcare and supports youth looking for places to live. Let's remember that this problem is so huge that it is very likely that you will interact with a student experiencing homelessness. We know the impact on students is profound and impacts brain development. The law defines homelessness and sets requirements for schools, and there are things that teachers and communities can do to help. Let's end with a quote from Helen Keller. "Alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much." Let's remember to do everything we can to support our students, both in and out of the classroom. The information shared in this presentation was retrieved from the following websites. We hope that this presentation has been helpful for you and has provided you resources and information that will help you support your students and families experiencing homelessness. Thank you for watching our Hot Topic presentation on students experiencing homelessness.